The Pledge of Allegiance will be done by Ms. Claire Maxwell.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
During our moment of silence, I would like for us all to please remember the family of Butch Campbell. Butch is the board chairman of Murfreesboro City Schools, and he lost his son last week. If we could all just remember Butch Campbell, and his son's name was Rich. Thank you. I'd like to direct the board to the agenda. Do we have any questions or comments about the agenda order? Okay. Now, I would like to direct your attention to the consent agenda. I'll give you a moment to flip through the many pages of the consent agenda. Any questions, comments? Yes, ma'am.
Dr. Sullivan, do we have, when it comes to the organizations that are, for lack of a better word, using and or renting our facilities at our schools, do we have any kind of a uniform approach as to who's getting them at no cost and what that looks like?
Yes and no, that needs to be revised. It absolutely, we have some schools who are charging for athletic facilities that use and some that are not. And so that's something that we definitely in the future need to look at, but internally, yes. And if you're all right, I'll let Ms. Ridley answer that.
Okay.
There is a policy on community use of our facilities that spells out what the requirements are and then what has to happen, what we require. I think in the past, previous boards have exempted some organizations for various reasons, and some have been grandfathered in, so those are not explicitly spelled out in the policy, but that definitely needs to be addressed with a revision because that was a long time ago and needs to be updated.
Could you, by Thursday, would you mind emailing what that policy number is so I can take a look at it?
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
I'll do it right now.
Okay, yes, sir.
That would help us because I know the one you're talking about, we have the same conversation. This is my third year in this role, and it's the third time I've had the same conversation around it. So I would definitely like for it to be spelled out better.
Anyone else? Comments on the consent agenda? We will move on. There's no public comment for tonight. So we are going to look at legal. Dr. Sullivan?
We have the first out-of-county transfer student, first of three, and you have the folders in front of you. Out-of-county transfer student labeled as number 1. The board's been requested to admit a transfer student from another school system under discipline. The student was remanded to alternative school for possession of a THC vape. According to policy 6.318, the board may deny admissions of any student except those in state custody when a student transfers from another school system while under suspension or expulsion. For student number 1, director of school's recommendation is to admit and place into alternative school.
If you have any questions, please direct those to Ms. Ridley.
Ms. Bratton,
Yes?
I have a question. I was just thinking about this. A student like the one that is the out of transfer and they're reprimanded because of THC, I'm sorry. When hypothetically, if we take them in, do they go through the same process as if they were reprimanded with us? If we were the ones who were reprimanded with THC, they go through our own
They would go-
protocols and stipulations if they go to reprimanded for alternative school?
Yes, they go through our alternative school and the points and all of that to be able
Okay,
to leave.
okay, just one.
Good
I was just
question.
thinking about that.
Good question. Okay, number 2, out-of-county student.
Number 2, the board's been requested to admit a transfer student from another school system under discipline. The student was remanded for threat of mass violence. According to policy 6.318, the board may deny admissions of any student except those in state custody when a student transfers from another school system while under suspension or expulsion. Director of Schools' recommendation for student number 2 is to deny.
If you have any questions about the student, please direct those to Ms. Ridley. Thank you. Number 3, out-of-county transfer student.
Number 3, the board's been requested to admit a transfer student from another school system under discipline. Student is remanded for possession of a weapon other than a firearm. According to policy 6.318, the board may deny admissions of any student except those in state custody when a student transfers from another school system while under suspension or expulsion. Director of Schools' recommendations to admit and place into alternative school, and although it's confidential, you can get the details of what the item was other than a quote-unquote weapon in that file.
In the file, yes. Anyone need to ask anything that can be asked in public? Okay, we will continue. Number 8, Director of School Evaluation Tool. I will refer you to the 2024-25 Director of Schools Performance Evaluation Instrument. We are charged in the director's contract with coming up with the instrument, the goals and objectives, and what we're going to use to evaluate, Dr. Sullivan, 60 days from July 1st. This is our last meeting before we go out of compliance with the contract, so we want to make sure that we get an evaluation tool set. According to the contract, the chairman of the board is responsible for the coordination of this, and the evaluation shall consist of specific and measurable criteria. This is basically the same tool that we have used in the past, the one that we paid TSBA to help us with at one time, and then we did some revision on it. The revision that has been done is to remove on Appendices C. We wanted to remove some of the things that don't exist anymore, like AMO or absenteeism. The state does not look at that anymore, so there's no need in putting that in our evaluation. Also, the other thing that we added was a criteria, a measurable criteria for goals and objectives for graduation rate, the TVAS system-wide literacy score, the TVAS system-wide numeracy score, and the TVAS system-wide composite score. We did add criteria for marking that, since we seem to have some questions about how to read data. Questions or comments? No questions or comments? Yes?
Sorry, the scores that you're talking about here, we're getting those in February of next year to score them in
Are
April?
you talking about
The ones that were the 4, 5, and 6 on
4, 5, and 6
13.
will be the ones that we get right now?
right now, okay.
Because remember, we don't
Oh,
get...
that's right, a year.
Yeah, we talk about that every time, but we
Yeah.
don't get the ones for the year until you're in the following
Following
year.
year.
Sometimes November, December,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
you have to do the ones that we will be
Right, but we're
looking at right now.
yes, but we're referring to the ones in November.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay,
Anyone
perfect.
else? No one else?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I guess my question would be, is it possible to just use the actual score in and of itself as part of the evaluation and not really, like, have it be part of the evaluation, but not necessarily part of his score, where we're taking into account the evaluation and the actual score? Because for me, some of the issue is a score of 5 is like a perfection. There's no room for improvement. It's the highest score you can have. So I looked at the TVOS scores, and the cumulative scores, while they were at the 5, there were some where in one of our math scores, we scored a 1 in one area. So I personally didn't score them as 5s because to me it wasn't to the level of not getting, like, being at that perfection level. So if we're wanting to take into account the actual scores, can we not just use the actual scores?
I don't know how that would be done. It appears to me that if you are a level 5 district and all of your scores are cumulative level 5, then your director should receive a level 5 composite score. That's what's here. If you would like to change that, you may make a motion for doing that on Thursday night.
Okay.
Anyone else? Dr. Sullivan, you have anything?
Only thing I'd mention is we looked at AMOs, and if you'll remember, we had some discussion last September, October, that with our current Commissioner of Education, she outlined that as long as she is the commissioner, she does not believe in AMOs at the district level. So that was her
We
statement.
just
So that was
removed it from the indicators.
You're 100% correct. She said it publicly.
You heard her, didn't you?
Yeah.
All right, financial matters, Dr. Sullivan.
Fund 177, fund balance and expenditures approval. This amendment moves funds from account 34,685 committed for capital projects to account 91,300, 335 maintenance and repair services, buildings in the amount of $2 million. Historically, the ending fund balance has been used to allow the long lead materials and emergency acquisitions to be ordered prior to revenues, specifically property taxes being collected. The movement of this money from fund balance will go to fund the LED lighting projects in Fund 177. We currently, Brian, is it 8.3 million? Is that what we have in fund balance in 177? Does that sound, was last week?
Yes, yes, yes.
We historically like to have, so this is the fund that does not come in until property tax. So usually December, January, February, we are sitting over 8 million in this account. We like to be at 6 million. And so we'd like to go ahead and get a little bit further ahead on our LED project that we planned for it to take 3 years. We're going to try to get as close as we can. I don't want to say 2, but in between 2 and 3.
Questions or comments about the LED light project? Fund 177. No questions or comments? We
I'm sorry. I do have a question. I am so sorry. It just,
popped into your head, didn't it?
yes.
Okay.
Sorry about that. Trayley, this LED light project is what we've been talking about, changing the lights to the LED so that we can start seeing some savings costs with our energy bills, correct?
Yes, but the first phase of this is going to be more heavily leaned on our sports lighting because of
Okay.
this. After what happened at Smyrna and Laverne with the lights falling, we have a number of schools that are in that same condition, and we would like to address that and then move forward into our schools.
When do you think we can move forward with our schools? After we do
After
the
this
sports?
year, after this year,
After this year. After this year, you mean the school year?
after this funding cycle,
Funding cycle?
this funding cycle, yes.
Can I ask,
Yes, ma'am.
how many of our schools find themselves to be in a similar situation as Smyrna and Laverne were?
All of them.
All of them? Okay. Okay, thank you.
Took care of that? So that's where we're going to concentrate first.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Due to the safety factor and the potential for something happening, I'd like to take care of that first.
Certainly understand that.
So then for the school year, for the fiscal year 2025, 2026, we're going to budget to make the changes to inside the schools, the lights. The school.
I believe we'll have enough funds this year with what we have currently budgeted and the additional 2 million that we're asking to move out of fund balance to more than likely take care of all of our sports fields at every school this year.
Right, but that's the sports. I'm talking about inside the school building.
Next physical year.
And so we're going to budget that in the next fiscal year, 2024, 2025. No, 2025, 2026, we're going to budget to change the lights inside the school buildings.
We will begin that process, yes.
Yes. And budgeting the
Yes.
funding. Okay.
Yes, there will be funding requested in the
Okay.
that budget.
Yes, sir.
And just so the board remembers, this is what we chose to do. Instead of CMTA, we chose to fund it ourselves.
Yeah.
Instead of having to do high interest or low interest loans, just funding it year after year out of 177.
How much is that gonna cost? Is it gonna be-
Total to over 25 million. What was it the last? Because it's gone up.
It's between 24 and 26.
Mr. Tidwell?
Now, with that cost, though, it is going to eventually pay for itself. I think that's worth stating.
It's about a 5-year payback.
Yeah.
which
They'll
is-
last
which is-
potentially, how long are they supposed to last?
Sir?
How long are they supposed to last?
Oh, the sports lighting, we won't have to touch for 25 years. No
Dang,
bulbs,
Caleb,
no
I'll
anything.
be
We have a
dead.
25-year warranty.
That's a pretty good return on investment.
Good, that's
Oh, yeah,
a very
really
good
good.
Well, I think the principals are going to like, most of our high school principals, and I have one smiling at me now. No, they won't have to rent cranes anymore. We won't have to provide light bulbs and try and get on our tracks with heavy equipment to change the lights on the sports field. So with this, we're set for 25 years of not having to touch our bulbs.
Is there any way to track the savings at least the first year that we implement this?
Yeah, we'll
We,
try.
we will
We're
be
gonna track
able
it?
to, yes.
I think you'll want to know that. Huh? I think you'll want to know that.
Oh, yes, for sure, because
I think the public will want to know what we've done. Yeah.
Well, we're going to track it for two reasons. One, we don't want to give our funding body the reason to say, you saved this much money hypothetically, and now we're going to remove that funding from you.
Yeah.
We want to make sure we secure our funding.
Yes, for sure. And thank you again, Trey, because you've been kind of driving this for a long, long time. And so we're very close to getting this happening, so.
I was beginning to think I wasn't going to see it.
But it looks like you may,
You're going to make it, Trey, going to make it.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Number 10, engineering and construction.
All right, so if y'all bear with me, we've had this conversation for quite a while. I sent the board a very lengthy email. I know there's going to be a lot of conversation today and Thursday. And so I'll give an update of where we are since everyone is kind of watching. So this is Central Magnet Schools softball and baseball. And so just to kind of go back, and I'll send everybody a copy of this. Spring of 2023, Rutherford County Schools and subsequently the Rutherford County School Board was notified by the City of Murfreesboro that we will no longer be able to use facilities for Central Magnet at Barfield and Starplex, and that's the City of Murfreesboro. I disclosed this last time, I'll disclose it this time. I do have a 7th grade son who plays middle school baseball at Central. He was not on the middle school team in the spring of 2023. October 10th, 2023, we discussed this over the summer. And then we had a work session on a request to use Whitworth Buchanan as a site to build 2 facilities for Central Magnet. That was my recommendation, was to look and use design fees. I believe it was a little bit over $150,000 to utilize our current facilities and build 2 new sites at Whitworth Buchanan. At that time, the board requested us not to spend $2.5 million to build facilities and to look at other partnerships. That was officially voted on October 12th, so that's when the board meeting discussion and unanimous vote to look at using our current facilities or partnerships. And so I wanted to go over a little bit further of kind of where we are now, and then give you an idea of every facility that we have looked at. And we're open. Of course, my recommendation is just that. It's a recommendation as a director of schools, what I feel like is best for our entire school system. The board can take whatever action they see fit. Fall 23 and winter of 24, we met with various schools and government agencies to determine viability of different sites. The Rutherford County Conservation Board is a board underneath Rutherford County's Board of Commissioners that oversees county recreation, and so we had discussions on facility use. We talked with MTSU a little bit. That didn't really get anywhere as far as using their facilities. Spring and summer of 24, we continued that collaboration with the Conservation Board, and we started getting our own estimates for field renovations at our own facilities to make field standard for other middle schools and high schools. So as part of that collaboration, and we'll get into it a little bit further, upgrade lights at Buchanan Elementary for further use by a county recreation program. Within my first 3 months as becoming director, myself on a Saturday, Trey Lee, Jonathan Beverly, Mr. Tidwell, and I believe Michael Shirley. We reviewed very similar to what we see with lights, lights falling down on our facilities that are being used. And then collaboration regarding the old Kittrell Gym. Right now, we currently use that for storage. And that's a sore subject for Trey, because Trey would much rather use it for storage every day and us keep that. But we have requests from the Kittrell community to be able to use that. And in partnership, our use of ball fields for middle school, which gets us to today. Before I get into a little bit more of that, I want to give you an overview of all the sites we looked at. So here's what we provide for middle and high schools in Rutherford County. So at the first column, these are what RCS provides for our high schools when we build a new high school. We provide a regulation baseball field and a regulation softball field. You will see the rest of the items should match for Title IX regulations. So we are providing complete field, sod and infield, depending on what honestly, the principal at that time chooses. I got to open the Rocky Fork Middle, and I wanted a sod infield, so we got a sod infield. So the principal gets some design. Complete fence. High schools have lights. High schools get block dugouts. High schools get a scoreboard, irrigation, and then 2 sets of bleachers. Regulation softball field, the exact same set of information. For middle schools, it's a little bit different because middle schools are considered practice fields and not necessarily competition, even though Mr. Lee and I argued that all the time, that the team still had to compete. They get sod, a complete fence, infield, bleachers, usually 1 set to be able to share between, a chain dugout, which most middle schools you guys see request all the time. They come right back to you as soon as they're built, and they want to build block dugouts. In opening the schools, the contractor does try to get the electricity and water as close as possible to the facility, and then it's up to the school to be able to provide at the middle school level irrigation and electricity services. So that's where we are and what we constantly provide as our standard. So what considerations did we make in having these conversations? That very next day, I reached out to all of after October 12th, on October 13th, I reached out to our elementary sites that had fields to determine who used them, who owned what, worked with County Rec as well and the Conservation Board to see who owned which buildings. The first one we wanted to look at was who owned the buildings, because it's easier for us to use things that the Rutherford County school system owns. Second, for us to be able to use facilities that Rutherford County government owns. And then third, a different entity. We had to look for field dimensions. High school baseball is the hardest one because it has to have the longest field. So whichever field was the most available for length was one we looked at. And then, of course, cost. So the original proposal was about $2.5 million to build 2 fields, and we were trying to keep the cost as productive as possible. So here's the facilities we reviewed, and these pictures were taken from Google Earth. So here's Walter Hill Elementary. There's an old fence that was removed here and then again over here. You can tell there used to be a baseball field here. The public safety building is literally right there, and that took part of the dugout out in the bleacher. That field is in disrepair and would need to be completely redone to build that back. I do believe there's a little bit of the fence still back here. Is it gone too now? It's gone now too. So it would need a complete fence. So that was not our recommendation to go there. We looked at Christian Elementary. This field has a lot of interesting connections. This is not the one connected to the middle or the one directly by the elementary school. Behind the elementary school is an additional field. It is run by the Tennessee Youth Baseball Association and occasionally County Rec, but it is an RCS property. We had a Rutherford County team practicing on this field one day and were run off one day by the Tennessee Youth Baseball Association, even though it was our field. So you can tell, though, in the last couple years it has not been utilized. So this has been several years. It is not in good shape whatsoever. Daniel McKee Alternative School was suggested. It's not functional facility due to a track and lack of current facility. There is a backstop right here. It is too close to the building, and we would have to remove the grant-funded track. Buchanan Elementary has 2 fields. So 2 fields that are both owned by RCS but operated with partnership with the Rutherford County Conservation Board and County Rec. You will see there are 2 fields. The one we are proposing to do first is this one. This is the possible future use for middle school. Field 2 is the one we're looking at, the backfield. This is Field 2, the one closer to the road. Here's the school's Field 1. Field 2 is what we're looking for high school softball, and I'll show pictures of that in just a second. You can see, again, they need some work, but they're in shape that we can be able to utilize those. Field 1 eventually could potentially be middle school softball. But that would be a second-year project because that's not part of our overall. County Recreation would get benefit out of this as well because it's one of those that has the lights hanging down and falling over that's currently being utilized. Here are pictures from today. So you will see this is the facility. It does need some work, infield work, outfield work, dugout, but it does have bleachers. Next, we looked at Las Casas Elementary School. So this is one field directly connected to the elementary school. These are not the fields that are at the old Las Casas Elementary School. So we have some questions about that. You'll see the elementary school is here, the field is here. The request is to use this for high school baseball because it is the farthest that we can get lengthwise this way. And to be able to meet the length requirement, we can build a larger fence here. If you've ever seen Fenway Park, it looks like a little green monster. We'll have to build several feet up into the air to be able to meet that and put a net to keep it from damaging the building. We do have a few travel teams that request usage over the years, and they're in-kind agreement for usage as field maintenance, cutting the grass, and so there are some travel teams who have over the years done maintenance and done work on this. Pictures, this is from today. So this is, it was a weird thing. I emailed the principal, I said, can you go outside and take 2 pictures of your field, please? And so that was a weird, strange request, but that's what he did. So you will see it is in decent shape. We appreciate the work they've done. It's level. It's definitely going to need some infield work to be able to make it playable for high school. Next, we got to the Old Kittrell location. So Old Kittrell has 2 fields that are owned by county government and operated by Rutherford County Conservation Board. This would be our potential partnership for middle school athletics. Most improvements have been paid for by County Rec, but I know there has been community improvements as well. The middle school season starts the Monday of the week of February 1st. So whatever that February 1st week is, whatever that Monday is, if it's January 28th, 29th, February 1st, that's when baseball season begins. It goes through mid to late April, depending on where the tournament. The only other usage that the middle school usually has is they have 2 days of usage during the summer for tryouts. I've confirmed, because there have been questions, there would be no painting of facilities, no renaming facilities. The only thing Central would have would be they'd have a banner on the dugouts during games, because that is not, that is the Rutherford County Recreation's technical field with county conservation, and we want to be respectful of the community. We will also, as I've talked to anybody that asks, we'll work with the commissioner of the league on practice times and usage. I've also talked with City of Murfreesboro to be able to potentially use Barfield for 1 more year for middle school only, if we had a timing issue that the times didn't add out. Working with them on practice times and usage is what we do anyways every single year with the city. So it's something that as a middle school coach you're used to doing. Wanted to provide a comparison. So this is what we provide to high schools. So this is Rockville High School. They've, of course, done field work at that point, but we do provide sod. The infield you can see is a little bit different. They chose to have the dirt infield with grass here and irrigation. They do get bleachers and they do get block dugouts. So, you know, I hear the concerns of why are we building or allowing Central to have athletic fields. It's no different than what we do for every other high school that we have. Middle schools, this is Rocky Fork Middle. Rocky Fork Middle, this is the middle baseball field. And again, I chose sod when I was the principal because I thought the old school sod looked great. And so they have added, the block dugouts have been added by the school over time in this little facility. And softball has done exactly the same thing, and the school has paid to run a sidewalk right here. So those are all things not provided by the county, but they do get a infield, sod, and then they get these things as part of a middle school facility. So the proposed cost, Las Casas Elementary, which is again RCS owned, this would be Central Magnet High School, a storage building for $10,000. What is different, I know that we have requests to have storage buildings all the time that the schools pay for. What is different is this would be the only school that's having to go somewhere else to play, which is what they're currently going to have to do. We discussed building mounds, and we don't want to build a mound to be respectful of the community. This way, with a portable mound, you can remove it, whether it is for 60-foot or 90-foot regulation, you can remove the portable mound and be able to play whichever one you need to. It does need fence work, as we talked about, because it needs to have height to get over its lack of being able to have the length it needs in left field. Potential scoreboard, I know it has one. We need to see the working condition of the scoreboard. Electrical work estimated at $25,000, no labor. RCS staff will perform the labor. Buchanan Elementary School is RCS owned. That would be the high school softball, because I want to put the two high school fields first. You'll see, again, storage building, infield work and bases, one set of bleachers, scoreboard, electrical work again. The reason you'll see the fence work here compared to the set of bleachers here is to make sure that we are keeping Title IX regulations completely equal. We have fence work at $25,000 here and offsets with one set of bleachers over here for $25,000. You need to provide the same for male and female sports. And then Kittrell field use would be for middle school baseball. The first one, a storage building, a portable baseball mound and infield work. Again, the exact same thing. You want a portable mound so that it can be utilized for anybody that wants it. That doesn't have a mound that you can't put coach pitch or anything else, T-ball that you wanted to put on it. Same thing for middle school softball, storage, infield, work and bases, $10,000 and one set of bleachers. The reason for the set of bleachers on this one is that the County Recreation Department already has them on the baseball field. And since they're already at the baseball field in good faith partnership, it would be good for us to pay to put it on the softball field. The old Kittrell Gym is a current RCS property, but it's used for storage. We have had a request from at least one commissioner to let the Conservation Board and County Rec take control of this facility for them to be able to use. So, definitely understand that any time that you are doing anything different, that brings angst and worry and concern. As I've talked about since I've been in this position for 2 years, and then what I've noticed even just personally the last 3 months, this community always works together, and I have no reason to believe that this community can't work together again. But I support this proposal because it is much more affordable than the $2.5 million that we looked at. There is discussion of could you continue to utilize a different field, find a different partnership, and we'll be right back here doing this exact same thing year after year after year, and this does provide a benefit for the community, especially at Buchanan and for the old Kittrell Gym as well. Sorry, I know that was a lot.
That's okay. All right.
You can have the mouse back.
I'm going to open it up to the board. Mr. Tidwell.
I got a few questions, and I think some of the conversations that we've had, but I just want to get clarity to those that are watching. A lot of people are watching now, especially from the Kittrell area. As far as like the concession stands and stuff like that, will the Kittrell community still be able to run those concession stands and receive those funds?
Yes, and that's one of the questions that I get asked a lot is how come Central doesn't just fundraise like everybody else? Central does fundraise. Central fundraises to be able to utilize the park facilities that we pay for right now. So where other schools have that option to be able to fundraise and charge a gate, Central doesn't get to charge a gate. Central doesn't get to charge concessions, which will stay the same. So that is no different. They're used to using Barfield or Starplex concessions. So absolutely.
Yeah, without that gate fundraising, it really puts them at a disadvantage as well. And this is not something that the county is doing. We are not trying to take anything away from Central. We were put in this position by the city. Is that correct?
Yes.
A couple other questions. I know you'd already mentioned the renaming. That's not going to happen. There's no consideration for that whatsoever.
No.
They have some adult athletics and stuff out there, but we are willing to work with the commissioner on scheduling. We're talking about a 10-week period. Is that correct as well?
10 to 11 weeks, depending on how far they go in postseason.
And I think you mentioned potentially 2 other days, possibly in July for tryouts, but obviously those could be worked out. But we have been in communication with the commissioner. Is it Bethany?
I've been in I know that I've been in communication with the Conservation Board. I have not received a call back from that person yet, but I'm waiting on one. I know that there have been conversations with the Conservation Board and the commissioner.
The use of the storage building, would that be something? I know that is a partnership we're talking about with the county rec, right?
Yeah.
Do you know what the purpose of that is? That going to be open for the community, Kittrell community?
I would rather it be our schools because we're going to have to put bats, baseballs, pitching mounds, or the pitching mound will have to go in there, pitching machines, all those different types of things. And I do have Mr. Marshall here, who serves as a strange role that he serves. Are you still the chairman of Conservation Board? So he's our principal at Oakland High School, and I'd asked him to come just talk about how the Conservation Board versus the County Parks and Rec works, that partnership. That's okay.
Come up, Mr. Marshall, please.
Appreciate the opportunity, and I'll try to be brief. Again, I've had the pleasure of serving on the Conservation Board now for 10 years, and the last several as chair of the 5-member board that's appointed by the Rutherford County Commission and charged with overseeing our county recreation programs and managing oversight of our green space and park areas in Rutherford County that include a lot of former school sites and current school sites as well. Additionally, we oversee the programming for county recreation, and most people recognize not the Conservation Board, but our Junior Pro athletic programs that are throughout the county through Junior Pro basketball, Junior Pro baseball, and our Junior Pro soccer program, which is our most recent successful program, with thousands of students participating yearly in those programs that benefit our communities throughout the county. Also, we operate our open gyms for students to participate after hours to give them something to be engaged in a recreational programming that are a host as partners with our schools throughout the county and in the summers as well. And so we're grateful for those opportunities to expand our programs in those communities at those times. With regards to the parks located in different communities throughout the county, we provide that oversight and support to the various parent, athletic, and community groups that utilize and volunteer to maintain these spaces for benefit of our youth and our communities. And it really, we try to stay in the background as a board because the real work comes from our volunteers and our parents. We partner with different organizations where it's the Ruitans that help with the Rockville, the old Rockville School and Park, and the old parts of the old building and gym there. So just as we partner with the official ball clubs, like at Las Casas, and as we work with the ball club, for example, at Kittrell, some of them are different organizations in their structures or in their arrangements with the county to operate or have access to that space. But we help provide them with support, and in some cases, or in most cases, we also are giving grant opportunities to invest in those parks, and that's why you've been able to see some of the upgrades that we've been really prioritizing and excited about, because it benefits all of our children in this county and all of those communities, and we really are prideful in being careful to equitably distribute those funds across the communities and not focus just on one, even though to be honest, we have really put a lot of time and effort over the last 5 years in the Kittrell community because of the state and the condition of the park at the time. And really, most recently, I can remember 10 years ago going out there with Ben Cates, who was our county recreation director from Kittrell, has left his imprint in a lot of lives throughout, not just Kittrell, but throughout the county. And I can remember those conversations with him and his disappointment at hoping one day we could revive the park back to what it had been, and to credit to the community in that particular area, because they did a lot of the work out there leading up to us getting involved, but it had fallen disrepair. And that sometimes happens in these park areas, depending on the active level of teams or participation, and sometimes it dies out. And so with it, our volunteers, and we really are a volunteer group ourselves, and we have to find those partnerships to be able to work together to invest and see that through. And so that's what you see, a great example for many years consistently in our Las Casas community across the street from the elementary school at the old school site, one of the best run ballparks we have in the county rec leagues, and that's attributed to consistent leadership passed from one group to the next, parents dedicated to put in a lot of time to keep a ballpark going, but we definitely are appreciative of the partnership we have in Kittrell, especially in the last 6 or 7 years with the ball club, that has really stepped forward to provide the labor hours, the volunteer hours, and a lot of other people. That's the problem when you get into this type of conversation. You don't want to leave anyone out. It takes a community dedicated to do that, but we've really been mindful with our partnerships to ensure our priority is to the communities. We represent the county commission and we represent county government, but our priority is to serving the youth of those communities and then balancing the rest of that time out to see that we're maximizing the use of those facilities for the good of our communities. And in this case, we think we have reached that agreement in a lot of conversations back and forth with the leadership of the ball club to ensure that we are not taken away from the priority of what they want for their community. We can find common ground, and we have through a lot of great conversations, because we know at the end of the day it's about providing additional opportunities for our students in this county. And we feel we've been able to manage that by maintaining their priorities, and we appreciate the willingness of Dr. Sullivan as we've been working in those negotiations to ensure that their priorities are met and are maintained. And our job is to mediate the difference and to ensure that those obligations are met for the well-being of the community. And so that's all I have to say, unless there's any questions.
Mr. Tidwell?
Could you speak a little bit to some of the money that's been spent at the county parks and rec, from county parks and rec on Kittrell community area? You mentioned that a lot of the work has come, or funding has come from that. That's not to take away from what the community doing. The community is doing a great job out there keeping those fields up. But could you speak to some of the help that's been given as well?
Yes, especially probably close to 100,000 or more exact numbers I can provide with you with a detailed list. Obviously not taken away from the cost of volunteers and donations from businesses that are
100%.
dedicated to those communities. I want to stress that. But we've upgraded the lighting system. I can remember when we took a tour out there 5 years ago. It was concerning from a safety standpoint. We had birds roosting inside the light poles, and some of the light poles had even fallen off. And I have those pictures to this day for anyone who doubts that. I'll be glad to provide them. And so it took a partnership again. We don't necessarily, we have a limited amount in our grants that we can do that with, but it took members of the community working together with a corporation to help get new poles out there, and then we help with the investment of covering the cost for the poles, covering the cost for the electrical, for the lighting, for the fence upgrades that you've seen there. We do infield work as well, backstop netting. Those are just some of the examples. The playground that you see out there, we invested in and continue to do additional items like renovating in our restrooms. Again, we provide some of the seed money, and at the end, to make it happen, it takes volunteers or companies to come in and help meet us in the middle to make it happen. And here recently, there's been some wonderful upgrades and attributed to hardworking members of the community to ensure that happens. And we're going to make sure that facility and the work they've done goes for the community while balancing the needs fairly, and we think it does for what we need to help with the other programming as well.
Yes, ma'am.
I think this is a great project, and I think all parties can sit down and can work out a calendar so that it works and everybody gets to use it. And I believe this is a very cost-effective way to get a win-win for everyone. The only thing I have that I think is unfair are the storage buildings at all three locations. I do believe that the parents at Central need to have some skin in the game as well. I know they haven't been able to fundraise, but Riverdale and Oakland didn't fundraise when they had to play their games at MTSU too. The only monies they got were off of a football program. So I do think they've got time. They've got time to get this money together, because they will not need this facility, a storage building, until the spring or the early February, March, yeah. I just feel like I like everything on here except for those buildings. I feel like Central needs to step up and purchase those, just like all the other schools had to purchase those kind of buildings for their program.
Okay. Anyone else? Mr. Young?
This is not toward Mr. Marshall at all. This is just in general. In last cases, I feel a little slighted on this deal because not till Tuesday, a week ago, did I find out that this was a done deal. And I think it's very unfortunate, because I think we've cheated the community out there that has worked very hard on building a field at Lascassas School, and no money was ever coming from the school board. That field was built solely by the parents, by fundraising. They didn't have gate money. They didn't have, only way they could do it was through Panther Prowls, silent auctions. I've seen them raise $20,000, $30,000 in one night out there. It's a slap in that community's face that we did not come out there and communicate to those people what was going on. And I'm sure there's some other communities feel slighted too, because I don't know that we did a real good job communicating. And communication is key when we get into something like this. We do not want to lose these parent support. Our parents is what carries Rutherford County Schools. They are what provides most of all this sports stuff for these schools. Now, somewhere down the road, yeah, the county started picking up the tab on some of this stuff. But 22 years ago at Las Casas, they did not pick up the tab. The parents picked up the tab. And I think it's very unfair that we bring money out of this Board of Education to pay for some of these things that's already there. There's already a scoreboard at Las Casas. That field is pretty much field ready except for the infield. I was just out there today. I took some pictures myself. It don't take a lot of work to get a ball field ready. And I think we're asking too much here. I think we need to be focused more on classrooms, getting kids out of portables, and trying to figure out a way to get aids on buses, on these special ed buses. We got people, bus drivers turning buses in because they can't get the aids. That's what we need to be focused on, guys. We need to get the taste of reality and get back in the real world. That's all I got to say.
Anyone else? Did you have something, Ms. Rosales?
I just wanted to ask a question. I got a lot of complaints too, but I'm just wanting to understand that there's going to be communication between everyone that's going to be using the ball fields that have the contracts or whatever with the school to make sure that everyone has equal usage of the fields.
We'll do a memorandum of understanding like we do with the city.
Okay. And these costs that we have here, have they been comparable to what other things that we paid for this, the scoreboard cost?
We spend a lot more when we build new schools, a whole lot more.
No, I understand.
Well, I'm saying for the facilities, no, Central's not getting anywhere near what our new.
I understand. I'm just saying that we did do our comparative to
We'll have
make
to send
sure
everything
that
out to bid and everything still.
right. I'm just wanting to make sure that we did our due diligence and what this cost as we put here. Thank you.
Anyone else? Ms. Darby?
I did some quick math. It's about 310,000 the total for these in comparison to what was 2.5
2.5 million.
million? Okay.
And this addresses 4 fields, not 2, because originally we were just looking at 2.
Okay. Are any of these fields currently being used by our schools? Like the Las Casas field, is that being used by any of the Rutherford County schools?
Travel baseball teams.
Right, but not a school team, not a school-associated team.
No.
I don't know that I really have questions as much as I would just kind of like to say, as a board member, it's difficult, I think, being in these positions. Nothing is exactly fair, and I think we're kind of charged with trying to make things as fair as possible. And I will say, our magnet schools in particular are in some of our oldest buildings. They don't have the athletic facilities that a lot of our other schools do. So I think we also need to be mindful of those students and parents. I've been fortunate in the sense that my oldest didn't play school sports, so I wasn't faced with some of the challenges that some of these students and parents have been faced with. I guess I do have a question, actually. When we look at the partnership piece of this, can you speak a little bit more to what exactly that looks like? Because my understanding is 2 of these fields would be on school property and 2 are on county property. Is that correct? So are we footing the financial bill for all of it?
No, because the Kittrell facility has already been upgraded by the county, And so in turn, we would need to upgrade the Buchanan facility, which needs to be upgraded anyways because it is being used by County Rec and falling apart. So it does need to be upgraded. Kittrell's kind of financial connection would be in order for us to use the field, we again are holding on to that Kittrell gym right now that's been requested to be used. And I hate to talk about that as a negotiation, but that's a negotiation tactic that we've used is in order for us to give up the facility, we need as a county school system a benefit as well.
I was going to say, I would love to see us work together, but I think we need to be sure that everybody's
Right.
putting a fair amount in. The storage buildings are another difficult thing. I wasn't around when Oakland and Riverdale were having to use MTSU, but they eventually got their own facilities. And my understanding is Central will never have
Correct.
their own facilities because of where they're located. So we are asking those students and parents to forever have to travel elsewhere as well, which I think is something to also take into consideration. So.
Anyone else? Mr. Tidwell?
Could you speak to the practice times of those as well?
I can only speak to the middle school portion of it because that's the fields that we're most concerned about with the Kittrell community
Yes.
right now. Practice times, just knowing that when my wife or myself had to pick our child up, they were done between 5:30 and 6 o'clock, usually Monday through Friday before the season started. Once the season started, it would all depend on when games were. And you usually practice for about 6 weeks, and then because it's such a short season to try to fit in 25 or 30 games, they play Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. And that's usually done by 5:30 or 6. If it's a ball game, of course, it's going to be a little bit later, but those alternate between home, away, home, away, home, away.
And we're still going to communicate that schedule with them as well. Can I ask you about one of the slides? Can you pull the slides back up? If you don't mind going back to the Buchanan slide.
Yep, that one. The actual.
No, go back to
Overview.
the wording. Let's see, Field 1, possible future use for middle school softball. So are we potentially looking at, am I understanding this correctly? I just want to get some clarity on that because I didn't see that before, that the middle school softball team that would be going to Kittrell a year or two could potentially end over at Buchanan
Well,
Elementary.
that's a whole different conversation. We do not provide lights for middle school fields, and that field would have lights. And so that's in trying to be fair for everyone. And I know that there's some disagreement on this, but we truly looked at it of what do we provide for high schools? They need to go to the fields that would have high schools. And what do we provide for middle schools? Yes, Kittrell does have lights. The county provided that, and not the school system. So in what's best for students and best for the community, yeah, it probably is best for the middle school team to go to that field right where the high school is. But that is not what we've ever provided for middle schools before.
Okay. Question there. I think a lot of the phone calls and emails and stuff that people I've spoke to out of Kittrell, which I'm from Kittrell, so I went to Kittrell, K through 8, played ball on these fields, I get it. But part of maybe the equation is, one, just make sure we get all the information out there. Two, they want to make sure that we're going to communicate with them throughout the entire process. Feels like there may have been some, there's a feeling that there's been a breakdown of that communication at some points along the past year or so, even though we have the meetings here and stuff for the school board side, all those involved. So we want to make sure and strengthen those communications. But another thing is, Kittrell, obviously it's a more rural area. There's some more socioeconomic factors involved out there. And so there's a fear, especially some political things that probably have happened out in the area in the past 6 months too, that I've heard a lot about over the past 2 days. And there's a feeling, because of some other things that happened, it felt like they were kind of being overtaken to a certain extent, that may be the intent here from the school board. And I am here to say, and I'll be open to anybody that would have something else to say about it, but that is not the intent. We're simply looking at the options that we have, the best options, which you went through how we came to a conclusion here of the different fields that we had access to and how we ended up where we ended up at. We're bringing something to the table. We're trying to be minimally invasive in the scheduling. We're trying to keep that line of communication open and provide a solution that would supposedly, we're trying to be a win-win for both the Kittrell community and also to help out Central. So I just want to make that point very clear that of the information that's been shared tonight, everything, there's nothing backdoor deals, everything's public record, everything's out here in the open, And there is no wrongful intention here. We're just trying to look for a solution to help these kids be able to have a season without overshadowing everything that's going on in these communities, or the work that the individuals have put in, or the times that the community has paid the light bill. Nobody's taken away from any of that. That's been a huge benefit, and we're grateful for our community.
I just got a motion to Mr. Marshall. That's who I reached out to, because that is the board entity that I would reach out to. I would have no way of knowing community members or anything, and their meetings are open to the public. It has been on y'all's agenda in the minutes. I don't want to steal your thunder, but.
No, we're a public entity, so our meetings are recorded, our minutes, and published and sent to every elected official on the county commission, including the mayor's office. So it's something we've been open about throughout the process, and have been completely upfront with the ball club and Miss Bethany and the folks there. We even had a meeting at Oakland one day to discuss this several months ago now, but it's been almost a year that we've had conversations, not consistently every week or anything like that, but we definitely, and to be clear, this is a county government deeded facility, and so we will be the gatekeepers. The Conservation Board will serve as the gatekeepers to ensure that those priorities are met, and we don't have a problem. I've worn multiple hats before, and I've been wearing this one for some time and hadn't had any issues advocating on behalf of that community or any other community that we support and we partner with as a representative county government. And so we will do that and be willing to come forward and speak up on behalf of Kittrell if they feel that there's something that's not being done in accordance to what we agree on. And matter of fact, I just discussed with our county recreation director, we'll put our agreements in writing so that everyone knows, and there's no issue of transparency over what we are going to agree on as far as practice times, utilization of facilities, and working through all of those issues that we've already pretty much have already nailed down, other than just finishing up some final conversations with, once we know the direction of the board.
Mr. Marshall, can I ask a question? So it's based on what you're saying, it sounds like there has been communication that's been out in the public about what potentially could be transpiring where we're at right now.
We have been meeting with the ball club, which is the only active organized group that has been investing the primary use of the field. You know, again, I'm not going to take away from different members of the community not chipping in and helping in different ways, and we have some here tonight that have provided some valuable investments, and just with time and their businesses and things that we graciously recognize and appreciate. But you know, we're charged with trying to work with the organized groups that we know exist. We're fortunate that this ball club has been there and started maintaining. First started with mowing the field, and it has grown from there. And we are delighted that because of some other issues not related to us that have gone on in the community that have initiated a lot of awakening of involvement in the community has benefited us. It benefited that community, and especially this part, because there's been attention from the community like we have not seen in my 10 years being involved in the Conservation Board, working with some of the individuals like Clarence Brandon and Mr. Brandon and some of the others in the Kittrell community that we've been working with. So we're excited about it. We know we can work towards finding that happy medium, and it is not an effort to take away from what they want to see come to fruition in that park or the bigger project that we're working on as a board for, that we know we're going to need the school's additional, you know, partnership as we continue to grow out the vision of that. But that conversation will be in more of a community setting, because to get feedback on that direction in a separate matter. But specifically with the ball clubs, we work with those organized groups.
Yeah, I think that the biggest issue is that there's this feeling that the school is just going to overtake the fields and take up all the time, and there's not going to be allowing other organizations, form or not, to use the facility. And so I think that is what I was trying to accomplish, is to kind of quell those fears that everyone is going to still be allowed to use the facilities for whatever purpose that is appropriate for their usage at the time. So I think that's the biggest thing that I feel needs to be driven right now.
Mr. Sullivan?
Oh, I was just going to echo everything that Mr. Marshall said. It has been lots of conversation, not so with Les Casas, I'll admit to that. That's our school facility. So if that's an error on my fault, that was a Rutherford County-owned facility. I did not consider going to the community and asking use for our own facility. That never would have crossed my mind. I realized the contributions that were done before, but Mr. Lee?
Well, one thing that's a little different with Kittrell's very active. Buchanan's kind of fell by the wayside. At one time, there was a lot of community involvement out there, and that community involvement has not been there as much. The facilities have gone backwards, they've gone down. And I think that's what we looked at last year when we went out there, is that there had been a strong community involvement out there, and there's not now. So I think that plays into, we're trying to, it will benefit, we're hoping that it does jumpstart, the Buchanan ball clubs back up and those kind of things. It benefits the community as well.
I'll add just, because I'm sure somebody will bring it up on a personal note, that is literally the farthest facility from my house that I could possibly choose. And so if there was a partnership that was closer to Central, we would have looked for a partnership closer.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Young?
Yeah, the communication issue was not with Mr. Marshall and his group for Las Casas. It was just, we want to see everybody play ball. I think every kid that wants to play ball in this county should be able to play ball. But at the same time, Las Casas was not brought into the picture. So that's our disappointment, is that there was no communication with myself or Steve Piercy. And I think some of you other guys, Caleb, y'all met with the county commissioners. Y'all had Robert P., Jonathan Beverly. Everybody was involved. Last cast is we didn't have that. We didn't know what was going on. We was being blindsided. So now, did we know that last cast is being considered? Yes, we knew that. But we didn't know that this was a done deal until this week. And it's very unfortunate that we found out the way we did. So that's where I've got a problem.
Anyone else? All right, seeing no more questions. You got one?
I think just for the record, Central and the school system, if we had our preference, would build our own facility. That is what we would like, is to have the exact same facility that every other middle and high school has. I talked to Dr. Asher about that today. That is the ultimate request, but that is not the position that we're in. So.
Let's move on to transportation.
You don't want to talk about that some more?
No, I think
Okay.
we've beat that dead horse pretty well.
Transportation, tab 5, Rutherford County Board of Education Extended Sessions Bus Contract for 24-25. Transportation submitted the extended service contract for Power Hour 24-25 school year. The contract is the same contract as last year with changes in section 5.2 for the compensation dollar figure of $235 per day.
Questions about transportation? All right, number 12.
So this is more just for information, and I know it's different because we're in the middle of transitioning school board members. In our new policy that went into effect on August 8th, and the new state law from July 1st, we still have the overall book review that can be submitted to the school level instead of the district review, library review committee. Now it's the school level, and they have 30 days to make a determination to the director of schools. And then within 60 days, the board has to act. So that is the official review. We also still have the potential violations of the obscenity law, which is a separate law. These books were brought forward as a request to remove for potential violations of the obscenity law, and in board policy, those go straight to the board. There is no review process by the district or school. It goes straight to the board for potential review, and you have those lists of, I believe, 7 books that will need to be decided upon by September 19th to meet the 60 days.
But the board has to have time to vet it. They have to have time to look at it, they have to have time to read, and they have to have time to vet this. So no decision will be made until September 19th. For those people who have emailed me, I've tried to answer half of them, and I'm sorry I haven't finished, but I won't be voting on this. I'm sorry. This is my last week. I'll miss you all. This is my last week, and I have said to each and every one of you that I've answered, I unfortunately will not be here to vote on this, and neither will Mr. Young. So you need to direct your comments, and I'm sure you already have, to board members that already exist, or to our new board members after they are sworn in September. So I will continue to tell everybody that. Evidently, people didn't know that I'm at my next to the last meeting. It's been a long 4 years. All right, insurance.
Yes, our insurance committee met today, and they are reviewing the data packets that we were shared with from the state, and they're trying to prepare a recommendation for our September board meeting. So those meetings are underway, and we'll have several more of those before we meet again in September.
Yes, sir.
I think Brian and Dr. Anthony, they took the lead and met under a short time frame, and they have 3 additional meetings. Is that correct? 3 additional meetings before recommendation is made by September 11th, so that it's on the board agenda for September 19th.
September 19th. Oh, that's great. Okay. Financial report?
Nothing right now. Very, very well. I'm waiting to talk to Michael Smith in September. I've forwarded to the board, and I hate to even bring up something else controversial. We have an additional amount that is been removed from TISA. If after the first reporting period is complete, we may have to do a budget amendment to go back and move $3 million more out of fund balance to be able to allocate to one of the 3 or the 3 charter schools. I'm waiting on what that enrollment report comes to, and I'll have to follow Michael's direction on whether or not we need to do another budget amendment or not.
Director's update?
Thursday, son.
Thursday?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
Dr. Sullivan, would you be comfortable talking about the recent meeting about our elementary school in Laverne, or would you rather wait and do that some other time?
Let's do it Thursday, because I'm not sure let's talk, and then I can talk on it Thursday.
I'm sure we don't have anything on.
Cam, hold on.
You do.
You talking about Laverne Lake?
Yes.
Okay, yes. Be happy to. I want to make sure I was on that.
I was trying to not, because it's on the spot, and I apologize for
You're
that.
good. There has been a request from several county commissioners to use Laverne Lake Elementary. So several decades ago, when we bought land for Laverne Lake, Laverne Middle, and a additional Laverne High School type name in that facility, right where those schools are. There's some trouble with the soil and the groundwork, and Trey may talk to that a little bit better at a different time. So a high school is not feasible at that facility. We have been requested to use our land for a convenience center on the other side of Laverne Lake Elementary. That is land we could potentially use as a 9th grade academy or some other type of facility. While I know that the county has needs, and we're always looking to be a partner, this would be the 4th time in the last 3 years that the county has used land that was school system land. And when we are continually asked to watch our funding, look how much you pay for land, but yet we're the ones funding the land, that's a concern that I think needs to be noted. I don't love the idea of having a convenience center beside an elementary school. I understand the community has needs, and we would be good partners, but it is land that was purchased with school system funding.
Was that what you needed, Ms. Tarby?
It was. I just wanted anyone that's watching, especially those that are in the Laverne area, if it's something you feel passionate or concerned about, I would encourage you to reach out to your county commissioners and let them know your thoughts and feelings. I personally am not in favor of that for a multitude of reasons. I don't think it's a good idea, and I'm concerned about what it says to our students too, when we're going to put extra traffic, extra people that don't need to be near schools, near them. Traffic, bugs, smell, it's just,
Yes,
so I just wanted to make the community aware.
thank you.
Now, I will say something was on the consent agenda for the county commission last Thursday. I requested, when I found out for it to be removed, was told it was only the funding and not the official request to use the facility. But that would come through Public Works, not the actual Health and Ed or any of those. So I'm not sure where it stands, whether or not they've already voted to do it, or if they voted just for the funding. I'm not sure, so I have to get further information on that.
General discussion? Ms. Sharp, you have something?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can we put up some baseball fields there?
Sure, it'd be a long drive for Central, but absolutely.
Well, I mean, we do need
Yes.
some,
Yep.
and that's under our wheelhouse. You know, providing the dump for our community is not
That is correct.
in our wheelhouse.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else have general discussion? Yes, ma'am?
His birthday is not until next month, but being that Ms. Bratton and Mr. Young will not be with us, I would like to wish Mr. Tidwell a happy birthday a little bit ahead of time.
Thank
Is
you.
this an important one?
Yes.
I
I'm
ignored
going to remain 39.
it. Great choice.
Thank you.
Move to adjourn.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. We are adjourned.